Either that or the storms today have just blown his cell tower completely over.
Well, we lost our feed, but I put us back on. We'll see if it goes back up live. Maybe our audience will hang with us or come back to us, but whatever. Welcome back to Remodel Revolution Radio. So we're going to continue our discussion. I want to continue my discussion about how to drain a lot. I learned this from this old fellow many years ago when I was doing an addition on a house, and it rained and rained and rained, and the lot got so saturated we couldn't do the work, that we couldn't do the foundation. And so it became a huge problem. And we waited and waited and waited, and that silly lot would not dry out. Well, it ended up that there was a live stream that because of all that rain in the area, it just sucked it right up, or forced it right up to the surface. And that stream just kept messing with us and kept that lot mushy, where we couldn't get a truck in to do a foundation. So we took a 5-gallon bucket, and the idea is when you have a lot, or you have like the rescue house where I have water under the house coming up through the slab, the idea is to kind of work with gravity, with Mother Nature, because what we know is that water seeks the lowest point. It does two things. It finds the easiest exit and the lowest point. That's what it does. And so what we have to do, and this is kind of basically how a sump system works, is we create the lowest point. So we go to the lowest part of the yard. We dig a hole that might be, a couple of feet deep at the most, that we know will be lower than anything else, any place else. And we'll take a 5-gallon bucket, like a Homer bucket, and we'll actually drill holes in the side of it and perforate it. And we'll set it down in that hole, and it will start filling up with water like you wouldn't believe. And that happens at such a rate usually that you can, if you take a little handheld sump pump that's got a garden hose attached to it that'll pull the water out, and depending on the size of the lot, amount of water, it surprisingly quick, in the course of a day or so, you can actually drain a lot out a lot faster than it will fill up. It's pretty amazing to watch it happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around this lot at the rescue house, and we're going to figure out where we need to do this. And we're going to divert that, or create a low spot so that water has somewhere to go other than through the foundation. That'll be our objective. And it could be, on some houses, it's just a matter of putting in a drainage system to just catch that water. Now at this point, this house does not have gutters, and it doesn't have any real active drainage system. So it could be that once we get gutters in there and we can start to actually manage the water, then we can cure a lot of this problem. And maybe we don't have to put in a sump system. Maybe we don't have to do anything weird, but you can put in for a pretty reasonable price. And it's just labor, it's just muscle. It doesn't take a lot of brains. But you have to dig a ditch, and you'll have to put in some perforated PVC and create the drainage system. It's not that hard to do, but it's kind of common sense. I don't like drainage systems that rely on electricity, because often when you have catastrophic events like major thunderstorms or weather events, it takes the electricity out. And if you're depending on a sump pump, an electric sump pump, then you're very vulnerable to that being a problem, unless you're one of the fortunate people in this world that can afford a generator big enough to run it. I've had those too. But I've had houses that get so much water around them that we've had 2 or 3 sump pumps around them, and they don't really have a choice, because the lots were built in low spots, and the water may be coming off the street. It may be a creek. It may be the people next door, but it will literally fill them up underneath if they're pier and beam. And so you end up having to put in these sump systems. You have to create a spot for the water to go, and then you have to pump it out. And that can be really expensive, really expensive. So if you can do it with a you just use gravity, and you do, it's called passive, and you do a passive drainage system, that is the best thing to do.
Could you set up a solar system to a trickle battery in order to power those sump pumps without having to use a generator?
You could probably, Greg, but it's I don't know why you couldn't, but you're going to have, when you do that, you have to maintain a battery system, because that's a big block of batteries. And if you were going to, I guess you could do that for sure. For sure you could, yeah.
I mean, it just seems like it'd be an alternate way instead of having to rely on a generator or rely on power from the grid. If you wanted to just power the sump pumps themselves, maybe you could collect enough solar energy in order to charge the batteries. And with a trickle charger, you keep it topped off anyway.
If you have the battery system large enough, because that is going to draw so much power to activate those pumps and keep them running as long as, the main thing with that pump, it's got to keep running regardless. It has to keep running. As it fills up, it pumps it out. It's got a little float valve in it. And so it could be doing this for 6 or 8 hours. And so you best have a natural gas generator as well.
So maybe you could use the generator as an alternate as well.
Yes,
once the batteries have drained themselves sufficiently, then the Jenny kicks in, and then it kind of continues to power.
Absolutely. I've literally had one house that I did where we would look under the floor and we could see it literally filling up with water.
Oh, wow. What, were they living in the river?
That was scary. Well, they were living in the river when it rained. They were living in an old swamp here in Big D.
Off Marsh Lane.
No, it's not far from it. Over in the Creaky district. And there's streets here where I will to put a pier down for a foundation, I can't go 6 inches. The rock is right to the surface, and then I can go 3 or 4 blocks down that same street, and I have to go 60 feet because it's an old swamp. It's just truly amazing. And so there's not a lot of consistency with it often, so you have to test it. Now in Dallas, there's a road that cuts right through the middle of Dallas called the North Dallas Tollway. And the North Dallas Tollway used to be an old railroad track. That's why they put it there, and it just cut right through town. Well, the interesting thing about that is that the railroads built their old railroad tracks on the most stable land that they could find. And so that tollway was actually built on a rock. It's got rock real shallow underneath it. So the closer you are to the tollway in Dallas, the better the soil conditions are for building a house, because you're closer to rock, and that's the objective. It's very interesting.
Right, because you've got a lot of that fatty clay that likes to expand in North
Black
Texas
clay.
That when we get all this rain like we're getting today, it just causes doors and windows and stuff to shift.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Drywall cracks and all that fun stuff.
Now, one of the things that I didn't get to talk to Ken about is the fact that one of the problems with it, we're going to just have another little rain discussion here. Another problem with all of this rain, if you have really regardless of what is on the outside of your house, whether it's siding or brick or stucco, whatever it is leaking around windows. And this is when we find it. And hopefully you took the time last summer was a week ago.
It was.
during the recent dry season, which we didn't have a very long dry season this year, actually. And you need to make sure that when you have an opportunity, you don't have to do the whole house at once. Just do one window at a time if you have to. Go out there and make sure that you check caulking, silicone, whatever's keeping that window dried in. Make sure and check that. I'm doing a house right now. We're putting new siding on it. And it's the owner sent me a picture the other day because it was raining really hard, and he saw some moisture inside the house from that window. And so he was pretty alarmed by it. He sends me this picture. Well, the siding had not been put on yet, and the trim for the siding had not been put on yet. And so I just said, okay, just relax. And a couple of days later, we're back up there, and we put the siding on, put the trim on. Of course, the window doesn't leak. But that's how important it is that you go through and you check all these little things. We put the siding on, we caulked it, we did all the things you're supposed to do, and of course, there's no leaks. But if you don't do that periodically, especially when we have these hot, dry seasons that we have, which actually will kind of age all of those things. It ages the caulk, it ages the silicone, and it also, it's siliconing in. If you have wood trim around windows or masonry, things shrink and they move. And you've got to get in and dig that old stuff out, put the new stuff in, and then you should be fine. But if you don't do that, then you don't find out you've got a problem until it's a big one.
And a good point to make is often research what you're using for caulk. That way people understand that you're using a good caulk. That way it doesn't shrink so quickly within this blistering heat that we have here. Because I've used some of just plain old Dat Pater's caulk that you put it on, and 3-4 months down the line, especially if you did it in the spring and come in the summer, it's shrunk and has created a gap. Now water's getting past the siding.
It will certainly do that. It'll certainly do that. The other thing when you're choosing caulks, and particularly silicones, is you want a paintable. If you're going to paint around it, some of it's not paintable, and so you can apply the paint to it, but it isn't really absorbing into anything, and it'll flake off. And for most of us, we don't really care. We just want the caulk up there. We just want to stay dry. And if there's a little bit of paint not on, no big deal. Well, what happens is if that paint comes off, it breaks the bond. When you paint a surface, you create a bond, and it's all intertwined. It's all interlaced. So if there's a break in that bond, a break in that surface that starts allowing moisture to get in it or behind it, it starts affecting everything around it. It grows. The problem grows. So you have to stay on top of that, and you don't want to trap moisture behind those finishes. And that can be, that's daunting if you're talking about a whole house and you're having to go get up on a ladder and do, you might want to hire a professional for that one. I would. And then the other thing, and back to this moisture issue that we're having under this house has been under construction for, the first permits were pulled in 2015. That's why I'm there now, because it's now called the rescue house because it's been in so much trouble. It hasn't had gutters on it. And so there's no way that the water drainage can really be controlled until we have gutters on it and we have downspouts, and the downspouts take the water to a drainage system around the house. So one of the things that you need to do right now, if you own a house that has a drainage system, is you need to check and make sure that that drainage system around your house is free of leaves. It's not clogged up. This happens all the time. I see it all the time. And people will go, man, that gutter is overflowing. Well, guess what? It's because your drainage system under the ground is clogged up and it's backing up in the downspout. It doesn't have anywhere to go but over the front of the gutter. What happens when that happens? Well, it doesn't usually just go over the front of the gutter. It goes over the back of the gutter. And guess where that is? The back of the gutter is against your home. It's against the soffit or the fascia of your house. And so often gutters will overflow from the backside and actually flood the eaves of a house and start creating real problems. We see it all the time. And that's almost all the time, almost every time, that is just simply a clogged up gutter, clogged up drainage system, whatever it is. that can be, unclogged simply most of the time. Usually, like if you have an underground system, you can take a snake and run it down there, a plumber's snake, and unclog it. Sometimes you can take it apart where the gutter comes down to it and reach down there and just pull the leaves out. Be careful. You never know what's living in there.
That almost sounds like it could also, like you were saying earlier, water attracts to dry. If it's backing up towards the fascia and the roof decking, you could also get to the paper that's underneath your shingles and cause maybe your roof deck to get moist and wet.
It normally would get out past that, but yes, you'll see right along the edge of the roof, you'll see a place where it could be getting a little bit rotted on the front. That happens. That happens a lot, actually.
Then you almost need
and guess what? It's behind your gutter where you can't get to it, and it's a real pain at that point. We're going to continue this discussion at the other side of this break. You're listening to Remodel Revolution Radio. Don't go away and come back. So what does a garage door do besides enhance your home, protect your family, and secure your vehicles? Well, when you contact the pros at Windsor Door, you'll learn how a truly high-quality garage door company can make a difference. Insulated doors, carriage-style doors, steel and custom wood, Windsor Door has them all and much, much more. And nothing makes a garage door work better than a high-quality opener. That's why the folks at Windsor Door only use LiftMaster garage door openers. And it's no wonder LiftMaster is the #1 professionally installed garage door opener. Only LiftMaster has patented MyQ technology, which alerts you if you forget to close your garage door and lets you close it from anywhere, anytime with built-in Wi-Fi technology. It also has battery backup, so you can get in even when the power's out. So contact a Windsor Door dealer near you at windsordor.com. Alex Guthrie here for my friends at Total Air and Heat. Did you know a typical AC unit runs enough hours in a year equal to a car running 60,000 miles? Total Air and Heat recommends that you tune your system and have it safety checked every 6 months to ensure peak efficiency, proper operation, and increase the life of the system. Need a new air conditioning and heating system? No problem. Total Air and Heat can replace your equipment with the best equipment on the market today. Train. And you know it's hard to stop a train. So for the best heating and air conditioning contractors in North Dallas and Plano for the past 60 years, call my friends at Total Air and Heat, 972-881-0020. That's 972-881-0020. Or visit them online at totalair.com. Total Air and Heat. Some people think the only thing worse than calling the dentist is calling the foundation repairman. That's why I recommend Hargrave Foundation Repair. Cracks in the walls? Doors that won't close? Give the folks at Hargrave Foundation a call. Now, sometimes it's not the foundation at all. That's why you need an honest, proven company. You see, understanding the soils and weather is a must for a lifetime repair. Family owned and operated since 1968, Hargrave has seen it all. Hargrave Foundation Repair is fully licensed and insured, and their staff stays up to date on all the latest techniques and advances. So call one of the last independently owned foundation companies in North Texas and the exclusive installer of the Chance helical pier system. Call Hargrave Foundation Repair at 972-442-3415. That's 972-442-3415. Hargrave Foundation Repair, 972-442-3415. Welcome back to Remodel Revolution Radio. Hey, it's about to get chilly outside. And like it's coming up in our weather forecast, it's going to get like chilly willy. This week or next week. And for us in North Texas, that's like the dead of winter temperatures. You know, we a lot of times often it doesn't get a whole lot colder than that. Sometimes we'll have 1 or 2 days where it gets cold, but not a whole lot. And so I wanted to talk a little, spend a little, our last few minutes together today talking about prepping your heater, your heating system in your house, getting ready for winter.
Yeah, this is
Because,
something I've got to do at my home.
yeah, you know what's going to happen. You're going to turn it on. If you have, regardless of whether it's gas or electric, the first thing that's going to happen is some smoke's going to blow out of it, because there's all kinds of dust on the heat exchanger, which is the little part inside the furnace that actually controls, actually is the part that heats up, and the air goes through it and it heats the air up. It goes over that heat exchanger, and that thing, when it gets hot, if there's dust on it, it's going to burn it off. So that's the first thing that happens. And your smoke detector I used to have one, electric one, and if it gets real cold and you turn it on and it's the direct heat, in other words, it's the electric strip that's lighting up, if it's not a heat pump, and it will burn that dust off. And man, that house would get so smoky, and the smoke detectors would go off, and it'd smell funny, and it'd make me real nervous. But that's kind of normal. But there's a few things that you want to do. Just first of all, call your AC person or an AC person and just have them check it out. They can take that heat exchanger and clean it. That's not a bad idea. Make sure and check your filters, because you've been running your air conditioning now for the last few months, and the filters probably need to be changed. It's a really good idea. I don't care if it tells you 3 months or whatever, change it seasonally, because you have really even different kind of air going through it. Now, if it's heated air, it's dry. And so I would change my filter, and I would make sure that if I have a gas connection, I would make sure and take a little soapy water, get a drinking glass and put a little Dawn or something in it, a little dish soap, and mix it up. And then you can just take a little brush or something, and you can dab it around the gas line where it all connects, where everything connects. Just dab it around there and see if you see any bubbles come up. If it starts blowing bubbles, then you have a gas leak, and you need to make sure and get that taken care of. Also, really, really important, super important, this time of year, check your smoke detectors. Check your smoke detectors. Make sure the batteries are changed in them. If they're running from batteries, make sure they work. Hit the little test button. Make sure it works. This is the time of year we have more fires than any other time of year, for obvious reasons, because we have fire in our houses. Also, if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, get one. You can get a combination carbon monoxide and smoke detector. They're not cheap, but nothing's too expensive for your life. So it'll keep you alive. Lots of people, that is a odorless floating poison that's in the air, if it's in there. If you have your water heater and air conditioning equipment in the same closet, which a lot of people do, you want to make sure that there's proper ventilation in there. Particularly if it's a gas-fired system, you want to make sure that you have air that comes down low towards the floor and goes out the top, and that creates airflow that if there is carbon monoxide, it actually would go out through that, and that is supposed to be vented out to the outside, usually through the roof. Almost has to be, for obvious reasons, heat rises, but that needs to be vented properly. Don't let them just vent it into the attic. All of these appliances have their own ventilation. A water heater, a gas furnace, they have a vent stack that goes through the roof for a reason, because you don't want it being dumped in the attic. I see them all the time. Now, sometimes they just get knocked off or fall off for whatever reason, and just simply need to be put back together in the attic. That's not uncommon, but get up there and just check it, or have someone check it for you. Make sure that your venting is proper. Make sure that there's a little igniter also that ignites the flame. That can be, sometimes you'll hear a little click, click, click. And some of them actually have pilots still. Make sure the pilot's lit and working properly. We want to make sure the pilot doesn't blow out and just be spewing, gas. We don't want that to happen. So check your system, check your smoke detectors, check your carbon monoxide so that next week you can be back for this amazing show we're going to have, which we'll let you know what that's going to be in the next few days. And I really appreciate everybody listening to the show. I appreciate everybody on Facebook, everybody on 620 AM. Thank you, Mr. Greg Lindemuth, for being my great producer. Thank you, Mrs. Guth, for being the research team. And this is Alex Guthrie checking it off. Be nice. Be nice to someone. Have a good week.